Yes, thank you
So
so
much.
much for having us. Thank you, Ali, and thank you for all the wonderful staffs that have made this IYC version 7 a very memorable and a very interactive and active articulating summit across many of the continents from Asia, Africa, San Francisco in the United States here to as far as North Dakota. My name is Daniel Dubem Buje. I'm going to be the moderator for this session, and I have a wonderful panelist that I already know a lot about, and I'm willing to unleash them to every one of you for you all to benefit from their perspective and their ideas. Now, the topic before us today, as presented by our IYC conference, is about digital inclusion. But it doesn't end there. It's digital inclusion, its benefits in sustainable development goal, and how best we can leverage technology to ensure growth, especially for people in the global south. And I'll start my preamble by explaining that the digital divide and some of the challenges we have in global south are partly because of our inability to leverage on technology in such a way that it drives and address our socioeconomic needs and the challenges that befall us in the 21st century. I have panelists here who I know truly are grounded. They understand the importance of this very topic and are willing to share their ideas and their perspective on it. I will want to introduce our panelists and allow them to make the first salutation. Hi there, over to you. Just your salutation before I read your bio.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. Extremely happy to be here. I look forward to our amazing discussion, of course, learning from you, and then any insights that I'll be able to share. So, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that salutation. And then I will want to call my brother, Hamed Hazen, to also greet the viewers while I commence the process of um, reading the bio. Ahmed, over to you.
Thank, thank you so much, Daniel, for the kind words. I'm excited to be a part of this very important discussion in this time and space, and uh, it really is an honor to learn from all of you and to provide my bit about what I know is important for the digital divide and how it could be neutralized.
Thank you so much because I know our viewers are going to really benefit from your analytical mindset and the way you aggregate policies and the way you also present your views and your perspective in the international space. For those of you joining us, you are here on our session. The session's topic is on digital inclusion and sustainable development goal, leveraging on it to create meaningful development in the global south. And we have our two panelists. Hadia, I will read your bio. Hadia is someone already known to me and known to people within the sustainable development space diplomatically and across the world. She's someone that we all look up to because we know she's an instrumental figure in ensuring that the implementation of the sustainable development goals are done amongst people that need them the most. Her bio is very impressive, but this is just the brief one IYC has presented. So she's a seasoned professional and a very extensive expert who understands the power of development and how it should impact on both public and private sector. She has worked with a lot of international organizations and agencies within the UN space. And she also has worked with the Canadian government at the local and at the federal level, representing Canada as delegates to the World Bank. In addition, she serves as the youth advisor to one of the largest cities in Canada, Vancouver, where she focuses on transforming the way young people aggregate their views and shape the society and the environment where they live in within the civic space context. She has also worked as a youth advisor in many other capacity before now. The past 4 years, she has been the active Canadian Youth Delegate Representative and content creator, for the World Bank Youth Summit. And she also has co-founded many other organizations at the provincial level in Canada, and also is part of a lot of committees or a lot of groups within and outside the Canada space. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree and also a master's degree in global health. She's also a colleague of mine and policy. And she's someone whose areas of interest include inclusion, passion for development, and also addressing the socioeconomic inequities within the space. Heidi is someone who understands the impact and the influence of technology and how it can be used to leverage and ensure sustainable development across board. Heidi, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel.
And the next person's bio, thank you so much. The next person's bio we will be reading, who is a panelist here, is someone I recently got to know about. He's someone who is a researcher, and he's also a seasoned defense analyst whose major interests span almost 2 continents, but majorly the Middle East, Pakistan, and some part of India. He started his career as a psychologist of repute, and his major interest in research in psychology are majorly warfare, the 5th generation war, role of media in shaping the narratives and explaining the implications of wars and the consequences thereof. He also has an extensive research and literature citation on post-traumatic stress disorder and other conflict resolution, post-conflict resolution literature reviews. Ahmed currently is a journalist and also lectures, where his major in lecturing is in diplomacy and foreign policy, where he trains state actors, namely diplomats within Pakistan and some of the Middle East. Brother Ahmed, salam alaikum and welcome to our presentation.
Wa alaikum salam, Dr. Daniel. Thank you very much.
Yes, and on that note, we can then begin with the question and then see where it goes from here. So for now, our viewers, we're about to start the question and answer time. We know fully well many of you are from various parts of the world. Put your salutations, extend your greetings, post your questions. They will always come up on the prompter. Some of you will have the opportunity to have your questions read, your contributions read, and then try and take notes from some of the wonderful minds you can see on Earth. So, Heidi, you are aware where we are in the global South, and you know the importance of digital inclusion, especially as we begin to advance into a digital age before our very eyes. And you know fully well that a divide indeed exists between advanced nation and those of us in global South, also called developing nation. In your own view, what are some of the key challenges that we face that seems to be aggravating and digital inclusion or making it worse, particularly for global South? And how do you think we can address some of these challenges as an opener? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel. I think it's a very important question because it does really provide context and background, and then really being able to understand sort of the issue that's really kind of in the way of us trying to promote digital inclusion. So thank you for that. From my experience or from my understanding, there are a number of key challenges faced in promoting digital inclusion in the global South. However, before we delve into these challenges, there's a certain prerequisite that we will need to fulfill if we want digital to become a real factor for inclusion. And that prerequisite for me is infrastructure. So lack of infrastructure is that includes things like lack of access to technology, lack of having smartphones or having access to smartphones, computers and internets. It's a significant challenge still for promoting digital inclusion in the Global South area and other parts of the world as well. And this challenge is particularly more acute in rural and remote areas where there's often little or no infrastructure to support internet connectivity or other forms of technology. And this is even more of a greater burden for young people as well as women and girls who kind of carry a greater burden of this challenge. And in many cases, the lack of access to technology is also due to a high cost of infrastructure development, as well as very low purchasing power for people in Global South. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, the cost of internet can be more than 100 times higher than other parts of the world, which makes it extremely expensive for people to own a lot of these devices and things like that. So for me, that's probably the biggest challenge. And in order for us to address that challenge, it's really important that we recognize that one sector or industry will not be able to tackle such a big challenge. And we need more of a collective approach, which really requires, governments, non-for-profit organizations, and also private sector organizations to work together in order to build up the necessary infrastructure in order to expand internet access to these underserved communities. This can include things like investing in building fiber optic networks, wireless broadband networks, and mobile networks. So number one for me would be infrastructure. I think it's really the basis of the challenges. Another challenge that I would like to highlight is limited digital literacy. So many people in Global South do lack the necessary skills to use technology effectively, which does limit their ability to participate in the digital economy and more meaningfully be able to get benefits from it. So limited digital literacy can be attributed to a number of factors that includes, lack of access to technology, which I mentioned earlier, limited education opportunities, and most importantly, I think language barriers. In some cases, there may also be things like cultural or social barriers that can limit people's willingness or ability to engage with these technologies. And in order for us to address that, I think it's important for us to focus on improving the digital literacy through things like education and training programs that can be specifically targeted to underserved or vulnerable populations, such as, like I mentioned, youth or women who experience a greater burden. It's also important to ensure that digital literacy programs are accessible and also they're affordable, particularly for people living in rural or remote areas. This could involve things like maybe partnering with local organizations or community groups, or even educational institutions to provide proper training and resources. So I think between infrastructure and just the lack of digital literacy, I think those two are things that I would think are probably most important. There are other things as well, of course, in terms of like language barriers, and of course, lack of funding. But I think infrastructure and digital literacy are probably the top two things that I want to highlight.
Yeah, thank you so much for, stressing the importance of building a foundation, of building the structure or the framework upon which every other thing, develops in. It's also important that our viewers also hear from what you're saying, that access to these informations, access to and the operatable nature or the user-friendly or the end-user-friendly approach of some of all these technology stuff must be such that people can even afford to pay for it, especially when their situations are not looking too good. Hamid, bouncing off of what you've heard from Heidi and some of the challenges that people are facing with respect to digital inclusion, what do you think, from your own point of view, are strategies that you propose that will, lessen the problem? And I want you to focus more on how do you think we can be able to leverage on this to make it affordable, to ensure internet connectivity is better, to ensure that the coverage is more even to those in rural area. So please just give us your insight on strategies that from your own international experience and analytical mindset, what we should look out for. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Daniel. This is the very, I think, the foundational question on which the foundation of the entire global digital South is laid on. So, first and foremost, as Haidia pointed out, that infrastructure development is the most important thing. And infrastructure development to improve broadband networks and internet structures in rural and remote areas can be achieved through several means. And in achieving this, the governments and the international organizations like the World Bank and the UNO are of pinnacle importance. Like, they can secure funds in the first place, and then development, and then put it on the development of the projects. Alternatively, governments and the international
I think we lost him.
Okay, I think we're having Hamed. Can you hear me? While you aggregate your views and you get back to us. Okay, we're back with Ahmed. Ahmed, yes, pick up from where you start.
All right. So I was basically saying that the infrastructure development basically means the installation of new cell towers, laying of fiber optics, the improving of satellite connectivity, and it can be achieved through the government and the international organization, and or the public-private partnership, which can help leverage the resources and expertise of both the public and the private sector. Now, the public private sector in the global south, the public private partnership to develop sustainable business models for providing affordable and dependable internet connectivity can be implemented in several ways. There are multiple ways in which you can implement it. The government could work with internet service providers and the other private sector entities to explore new business models for infrastructure development, such as leasing or revenue sharing agreements. Now, the governments could also encourage investment in international internet infrastructure by offering tax incentives, providing loans or grants, or guaranteeing minimum revenue levels. To make partnerships more sustainable, government could explore the possibility of making public infrastructure available to the private sector entities, such as electric poles or water towers, to enable the development of communication infrastructure. Now, the third point that I have in mind is the mobile technology. Now, the world revolves around the mobile technology, and the mobile technology has become a very powerful tool to bridge the digital divide in the global south. And governments and private sector entities can collaborate to develop mobile based solutions that provide access to education, health, and agricultural information. Governments could also work with the mobile network operators to provide low cost plans, improve network coverage, and increase data speed in rural and remote areas. Now, in addition to the collaboration between the public private sector and the mobile companies uh, that address the specific needs of the rural and remote communities, these applications could be delivered through text messages, mobile applications, and voice based platforms that cater to the local language, cultural context, and literally levels. Now, the community networks will also play a very vital role, but the most important point, the most important aspect of curbing this digital divide would be similar technologies like the Starlink. Now, the Starlink is the satellite based internet service provider that aims to provide high speed internet connectivity to people in rural and remote areas. With its constellation of satellite orbiting around the Earth, Starlink can offer internet connectivity to people in areas where traditional internet service providers do not operate. In Global South, Starlink could be used to provide affordable and high speed internet connectivity to people in rural and remote areas. Here are some ways how Starlink could be used to achieve this. Number one, cost effective. Starlink can offer high-speed internet connectivity at a very lower cost compared to the other satellite-based internet service providers. This can make the cost-effective option for people in rural and remote areas who cannot afford traditional internet services. Starlink also relies on the constellation of satellites. It can be deployed quickly to remote areas where you don't need to spend more on the infrastructure costs. With its satellite constellation, Starlink can provide reliable internet connectivity even in areas where traditional internet service providers have difficulty providing services. Now, high speed internet connectivity provided by Starlink can improve access to essential services such as education, health, and agriculture. People in rural and remote areas can benefit from online education programs, telemedic services, and access to market information for their agricultural products. And the last point is the Starlink can be used as a tool to bridge the digital divide in the global south by providing affordable and high speed internet connectivity. It can help connect people in rural and remote areas to the digital world, enabling them to access information, services, and opportunities that were previously unavailable to them.
Yes, thank you so much, Hamid. And we have viewers who are listening to us, and many of what you've just said are just the textbook definition of what we need to do in Global South. I just want to paraphrase some of what you've said for those that cannot keep up with what you with your earlier introduction. So, Hamid was able to itemize how important for our viewers. Hamid was able to itemize how important and the strategies that are required to improve digital inclusion. He made mention of the fact that there are existing already low Earth orbiting satellite systems, the one he called the Starlink. Now, the Starlink is already known to some of us, but people do not know how important it is. The normal traditional satellite called the geostationary orbiting satellite, GEO, are always 20,000 kilometers out of here. They're very expensive to launch, and whatever services they produce in the back end are always too expensive for people to cover. However, this Starlink, or the ones that orbit in the Earth sphere or in the space, that we all contain here on Earth, are just about 180 kilometers to close to about 1,200 kilometers, not as far as the 23,000 kilometers traditional satellite. So because of that, it's much cheaper and more easier to launch into space, and then it's more efficient enough to cover all the information that we need and increase internet spread across board. There are challenges, however, and that's one of the strategy he said. Part of the challenges is infrastructure that our earlier speaker had already presented. Now, this spread or this internet connectivity needs to be in constellation, and that's what he was trying to say. They all have to connect to one another, and a structure has to be involved. Either you get cell towers or tall buildings within our cities in the global south. Government will have to give incentives to this telecommunication organization to mount not only their own communication land-based digital mass, but also this satellite guided image, so that the coverage widens over time. He also stressed the importance of ensuring that the content of what is being delivered to people fits the peculiarity of the region. So, for instance, in the Middle East, if their attention mainly is about development, about cultural integration, about teaching their young ones how to be respectful, how to love one another, all your digital messaging and digital content must fit into that. Anything other than that will lead to chaos, and that's also what Heidi has said, that people must be part of that process in ensuring that things go on. So thank you so much, Hamid, for crystallizing that view. I'll go over to Hadia. Hadia, you've heard what Hamid has said, and he has really extensively covered some of this stuff. Can you tell some of us in the global south, what are examples of these trends or technology that have this digital inclusion capacity that we can see? Can you mention some examples that you are aware of or that within any of the sectors, education, health, so that people back home will say, oh, so that's digital inclusion, right? So can you share some of that example with us? And then I'll ask Hamed the next question. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamid. I really liked your points and really emphasizing on the private-public partnership. I think that's critical in this discussion, and if we really want to ensure that digital inclusion is part of every realm of society. And Dr. Daniel, thank you for asking that question. Some of the answers might seem obvious to us because, I can speak for myself. I live in Canada, so access to technology or a smartphone, we have it, and I'm sure most of you guys do too. But when it comes to contexts of like Global South, majority of people don't have access to even smartphones. So in terms of answering your question, I think that's important to kind of remember. Because one example of a promising trends or technologies that can help expand access to digital resources or services is a mobile technology, is having a cell phone, for instance. A cell phone or a mobile technology has been a game changer in many areas where traditional infrastructure is lacking. So mobile phones have enabled people in remote areas to access a range of digital resources and services, including mobile banking, e-commerce, telemedicine, and education. So on the topic of telemedicine, I think especially post-COVID or during COVID, really took momentum. But telemedicine is really another digital solution that has the potential to sort of revolutionize access to healthcare. So by using digital technologies to provide remote medical care or consultations, I believe telemedicine can help to address the challenge of access to healthcare in remote areas where traditional healthcare services are lacking. For example, the telemedicine network of Menas, I think it's somewhere in Brazil. It connects doctors in urban centers with patients in remote areas,
Wow.
which then enables them to provide remote medical consultation and diagnosis. So that's extremely important. And even for a country like Afghanistan, where my family's from, especially with the crisis that's going on with the Taliban, not allowing women to go to school and not allowing a lot of medicine practices, I think telemedicine has been huge, because I know a lot of Afghan doctors in Canada actually providing telemedicine to people in Afghanistan.
Wow.
That's been really, really incredible. And then the third trend that I believe is particularly promising is the use of open educational resources. That's OER. So OERs can really help to address the challenge of access to education in developing countries by providing free, high-quality educational material to students and teachers. And a good example of this is the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning in India, which really provides free online courses and learning resources to students and teachers. And I think these open educational resources are extremely important because, when we talk about issues of digital divide, and the issue which I talked about earlier is lack of literacy or your inability to not really know how to use technology more effectively, I think would be extremely crucial in really kind of revolutionizing or addressing that challenge of the illiteracy issue. So those three I would highlight.
Well, thank you so much. Now that you have given me some ideas already that I'm already seeing already, but did not take it as part of the digital inclusion drive. In Kenya, they have what we call the mAgric. So it's a platform. It's mobile based, like you said. You need to have your mobile application that is easily operable, that the end user will be able to crystallize views. So this mAgric sends text message or has an app system where they notify farmers in Kenya the kinds of crop, the amount of rainfall to expect, the choice of what to plant at any point in time, so they don't waste resources. Another app like you also suggested, common in Brazil, is the financial app. They call it M-Pesa. M-Pesa is actually almost the equivalent of what's happening in Brazil is in Kenya too. So it's through mobile, through text message. Those that traditionally do not have accounts, in the cities, or do not have money to be able to deposit so much that they'll be able to open fixed accounts, they use that app to also help. And then those of us in the climate business, you do know Facebook sometimes prompts messages and say, no, don't go here. There's flooding, there's earthquake. Are you safe? Are you all right? All those things are also part of, the digital technology, digital application to make things work. So, Hamid, you've heard what Heidi has said, that these applications do apply even though it's in some of the global south, India, Brazil, Kenya. In your own view, what other trends or what other aspects, as a defense expert, do you think these trends can also help?
Yes, obviously, Daniel. I mean, technology in this modern era, in this modern day and time, we are in a revolutionized world. We are in a world that is a technical world. That basically the cornerstone of the modern civilization which we have entered is technology. And we have been talking about sustainable energy for quite a long time, and I believe that this technology, the technical advancement, basically is the sustainable energy.
True.
This technical advancement is the sustainable energy, and this is something that we should move towards.
True.
Now, for example, our country, Pakistan, basically is an agricultural country, right? There's only one culture in Pakistan, and that is agriculture.
True.
So agriculture is very important to our economy, to our existence, to the existence of the not only the Pakistani, but the region as well. India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, these are agricultural. I mean, the foundation of the civilization of these countries is based on agriculture. Now, let me give you a little example of Israel. Israel basically is a desert, and it's hard to grow agriculture or products or fields in a desert. But with the help of technology, they have revolutionized their agricultural setup so much that it is one of the biggest wheat and rice producing countries. Now, there's a small little thing. In Pakistan, India, and in this Asian region, we use a lot of water to grow our fields. But Israel has, with the help of artificial intelligence, they have lowered down the consumption of water in agriculture to 2%. Like they have saved 98% of water. Right, because there's a drone which hovers around over the field. It through technical to the heat sensor, it basically absorbs the quantity of the water that is required by the plant, and through artificial intelligence, again the same amount of water, same drops of water are given to the same plant. So agriculture basically, it has become dependent on technology, right? Same goes for the education. When we were growing up, when we were in schools, we used to remember dates, we used to remember times, we used to remember events. Now you have everything in your mind. It is completely, now you don't need to ask, you don't need to test the memory, because you don't really need the memory, right? You have technology in your hand, you have the mobile phone, you have the internet access, you are the memory. So I think the Western world has changed according to the change of time. The global South still needs to change, because it is something around which the civilization is going to revolve from for the coming days. And then there is health. If you look at the health in the past 2 to 3 centuries, it also, I mean, you used to go to the doctor to check your symptoms. Now you don't. You can check it on Google. You can check it on it. It has also revolutionized the state of healthcare as well. It has pros and cons, goods and bads, but the change is substantial, and the change is meant to be accepted, because anybody, any entity, any country, any region who does not accept the change that the technology has brought, that the internet has brought, that the artificial intelligence has brought, it has the power to bulldoze that region, that country, that civilization.
Yeah, thank you so much for, adding extra, promising trends to the digital divide, so that those of us in global south, especially Africa, some part of Southern America, and also Middle East and Asia, will be able to pinpoint some of this and say this is areas where we need to go. And I also want to stress for our viewers some of the things that you've mentioned. So Hamed mentioned things called precision agriculture. Precision agriculture is what Israelis do. They integrate technology in such a way that they're able to calculate the amount of water, the amount of soil, the amount of ingredients, nutrients in any square area, so that there is no need to waste. They don't have a lot of water to waste. They don't even have water at all. So they have to conserve. And that's what Hamed is saying, that this is a promising trend we should be looking at. We can cut down so that it fits the peculiarity of your region, but this has made Israeli sustainable in the sense that they can produce any kinds of crop, anything, even with in an area where there's desert. Another thing he mentioned, which is very interesting to me, is renewable energy. The process and the concept of renewable energy all are the products of digital inclusion, and that is helping revolutionizing transportation system in advanced nation. Most of their vehicles are not fossil fuel, and when there's no fossil fuel driving most of the commercial vehicles, pollution, or emission as we call it, reduces. When emission reduces, the quality of air gets better. When the quality of air is polluted, what happens? Health issues arises, difficulty to breathe. Kids now start having funny genetic makeup. Kids can have congenital abnormalities, things like that, and it doesn't all go well for us. So Ahmed, thank you for really putting that in context. Heidi, I wanted to ask, before we throw questions to the audience, I wanted to ask, so what role then can young people play? And this question also is for Hamed, Hassan, and is also for our viewers across the world. You've heard all our panelists have said, what role can we play? We mean young people. We also mean vulnerable population, women, men, anyone listening to us. Heidi, first, what role can we play in, bridging this divide, in ensuring that digital inclusion is for all, in ensuring that digital inclusion drives the sustainable development stuff? So can you give us some of your points? And when you're done, Hamed, also address the questions. And our viewers, please start giving us your suggestion, your perspective, while we scout through for questions and comments on the social media platform. Over to you, Heidi.
Thank you for that really important question. Dr. Daniel, I think we are the best generation to be able to be in a position where we can bring a lot of change and really play a huge role in driving digital inclusion and sustainable development in any community, in whatever local context you're in. I feel like with the digital world that we live in, we can really use digital advocacy. So young people have the tools, they have the resources and the knowledge and the passion, the creativity to advocate for policies and initiatives that promote digital inclusion and sustainable development in their communities. So for instance, by being creative and using social media and other digital forms, they can raise awareness about the issues and promote positive change. It's kind of interesting because a lot of the times, when it comes to young people, and I've been there myself, when we graduate from school, it's always like, I want to work for these big bureaucratic organizations and I want to bring about change, which is very nice, very ambitious. But a lot of the times it's difficult to bring about real change in those organizations because they have different processes, and it's just very challenging with so many stakeholders involved. I think we're at a generation where we don't have to be joining other organizations to be doing these type of work. It's about how we use the tools and the resources that we have, and especially with social media. There's so many opportunities for you to create your own not-for-profit organization, to even open a new Instagram account and start promoting, to use TikTok and things like that. So I feel like the biggest I guess, benefit for our generation is having access to digital advocacy and doing that in any form. It doesn't have to be digital advocacy. Any form of advocacy, I feel like, is huge, and we are at the best place to be able to do that.
Thank you so much for that suggestion. Hamed, what do you have as your own addendum to what she said?
Yes, I totally agree with what Hadia has said. And,
Yeah.
young people basically, Dr. Daniel, are the backbone of the world. There should be no doubt in it. They are the most powerful segment of the global society.
Yeah.
And you can see that social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they are most famous. Why? Because they are famous among the youth, right? So youth decides what comes on air and what goes off air, right? So I believe that this generation of ours is the most informed generation in the history of the world. You know, they are very well informed. They know what is right. They know what is wrong. They have the ability to differentiate between productive things and useless things.
True.
And we have to this is very hard to wrap our heads around the concept that for the past like 50-60 years we have been talking about that we'll grow up, we'll go in this university, and then we'll get a degree, and then we'll work in this particular organization. All these concepts has been rendered obsolete by the internet. Now you don't need a degree to start your YouTube channel. You don't need a degree to make your to influence people through your Instagram accounts. And I believe I don't think that the youth, I think the youth should figure out what is good for them and what is not. And this is not a question of if, they will have to figure it out. Eventually the truth will come out to them. And this youth of ours is going to deplete the digital divide, because there is no other option. They're left with no other option but to deplete it. So this is what the youth is going to do.
Thank you so much. And to some of our viewers who have been surfing through the social media platform on my phone here, and I wanted to read some salutations to Heidi and Hamed. Wait, let me start from Eliza V. Eliza V from Cameroon. She says, wonderful discussion. Ambassador Eric Johnson, I don't know where he's from. He said, well articulated, elaborate. Bikwat Sise Melaku, likely from Guinea. Agriculture is definitely the backbone, and digital divide should be included. Jubril Hamed Saik says, Hamed's point is excellent, with many thumbs up from other people. Heidi really explained what it means to really collaborate. Public-private partnership is key. I would just want to summarize from what I've heard from all of you, so that our viewers back home will have some salient points that are not missed. One, that there's need for us to realize that we're the backbones. And for those of us in science, Heidi knows, when they say something is the backbone of something, means it's upon it every other thing is established. So any nation that did not have young people as their backbone, it's not likely that it will be stable. It will always be an unstable nation. And another thing that I feel that you all stress is the need for us to take action. So you have to volunteer. The need for us to educate one another. And that's what Hamed was saying. We must educate ourselves. You understand? Those of us that are the academic set of people must educate those that are not. Not everyone is cut out in the global south to go to structured stuff. And that's what we must also convince our partners in the advanced nation. However, much of the benefits of the academic research and most of the intellectual properties are needed for those people that will not be able to enter the school to be able to make a livelihood, to make ends meet. So we need to educate one another. Young people have that educational stuff. We need to be very entrepreneurial. And that's what Idea is saying, that we are the ones that have all these brains and are the smart guys. All we need to do is identify the peculiarities in our community, bring them back into digital languaging, right? And then develop and test run a prototype. Do that with the people so that they buy into it and things will go on. Emmanuel from Butukerela. Emmanuel Butukerela says, most youths want to join already established organization and entities. They don't want to do the dirty job. And he's so right. And that's what Hamed and Hassan has been saying. You cannot leave problems in your community, in your direct community you see every day when you step out, to now handle issues that are not connected with you or discussions that are not even within your purview. You understand? I completely agree with you, Emmanuel. And then another important point that Heidi stressed, in the roles that young people can do, apart from educating, apart from volunteering, apart from really using their creative mind, the entrepreneurial stuff, is the need for us to share information. When you're doing something that you know fully well will benefit everybody in West Africa, let's extend it to those of our colleagues in Northern Africa. Let's extend it to those of our colleagues in South America. Ideas that can work to advance the destiny or the lives of other people will work anywhere else, because our needs and our wants are almost always the same. So I completely agree with you. Before you guys pass your parting gift, I wanted to ask this question from your own point of view. A question just came up now, and I want to say it. Please, Dr. Daniel, thank you so much. It has been an impressive discussion. Please ask Heidi and Hamed. I am from the global south. I fear that if technology is embraced too strong, it would mean that I may lose my culture, I may lose my ways. Are there risks and challenges in heavily depending on technology and losing our ways? This is tough. It's not part of what I think. I just felt it was a good stuff, and they want to hear your view. I think what he's saying is, should we feel concerned about the evolution that digital space is taking place vis-a-vis AI, vis-a-vis advancement? Is this a threat to our culture and our way of life for those of us in the global south? What say you, Heidi? What say you, Hassan? Over to you. Heidi, over to you.
Got it. Yes, that question has definitely got me thinking. Technology is always, any new technology that comes and a new advancement, I think there's always that public fear, and I can totally understand, because, whatever we bring, we'll have to be okay with losing some things. So in terms of culture, I think it's a valid point. With the whole, even the world of AI right now, and the discussions around that, there's a lot of fear about, are we losing jobs? Are we going to be able to be heavily reliant on technology? I think instead of like looking at it a fear base, I always try to look at things from a strength base, right? Yes, there's a lot of things that technology will be able to replace, but how can we use that to our advantage? Exactly. And how can we actually create more opportunities for vulnerable communities that might be impacted in order for us to go forward? So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I know cultural preservation, language, all that is important, but it's also important to advocate for technologies or innovations that are culturally sensitive and appropriate. So, what the technology, I know usually the technologies that are developed, they are very limited. They are usually developed for the Western cultures. And I think it's really our responsibility as young leaders, young advocates, to advocate for technology to be more inclusive, to ensure that, it's culturally sensitive and it's appropriate and it's affordable. instead of kind of letting the big people just kind of take the narrative and build these things for us because they think it's important. And on that note, Dr. Daniel, I think it's also important because we've really discussed the issue of these new technologies and development, and what that means for the promotion of inclusion. I think it's also extremely important that we really recognize that whatever technology that may work in one country will not necessarily work, or the strategies that we're developing. So we have to, whenever we're doing this type of work, it's really important for us to ensure that the community, those people impacted by it, are part of the conversation. They're part of the solution and part of the implementation. So that we know that their challenges are actually addressed, and it's not just the challenges that are coming from people that are in charge, and we just think that these are the solutions that they need.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that aspect of co-designing. You've always been an advocate, right from when I've known you, of co-designing. And there's a term for it. It's called participatory designing in digital sphere. You cannot design things solely for your market and believe that it will trend for other markets. It doesn't. And you must ensure that even when you design, they still have the ability to interface with already existing technology, pending the time you transition now to more big. I completely agree with you, Hamed. So what's your own take on what the question is? The question is, should I be scared of digital evolutions that are going in? Will I lose my culture? Or like Heidi, I say, there's always a need for us to be careful, be aware, and that's the language she's using. We need to be aware of the cultural sensibilities. We need to be aware of how people can be able to easily afford and operate it. Don't make it too complex. We have to consider those that are physically challenged, those that are special need people, those that can't speak. They're also human beings. You must include them in it. In your own, should I be worried? Should Mozamba, the guy that asked the question, should he be concerned? And if it is so, what do I do? You are the psychologist. What do I do to alleviate this and embrace this new world, which, like you said, whether we like it or not, is coming. You can't stop it. And it will be disservice if we tell our people here that don't build up on those skills, don't get competencies for those skills. It's not going to work. Over to you, Hamed.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. I'll answer it. I'll answer this question in more of a philosophical way. I mean, yes, yes, the dichotomy of good and evil, the existence of good and bad in something simultaneously is essential, right? That dichotomy basically is the life force of the universe. We love good so much. Why? Because there is badness in the society. We are I'm a defense analyst. I work on peace studies and conflict studies, and I know how important peace is. But the importance of peace is established by conflict and war. So if there is no good, there is no bad. You won't appreciate the good. This is how the universe works, and the life force of universe is to curb down the badness and flourish the goodness. And the technological advancement is no different. It is not immune to this concept. It is not immune to this dichotomy. There is goodness in this technology, and there is badness as well. It has the ability to transform a culture, to bring out the goodness from anything, and at the same time, simultaneously, just like yin and yang, it has the ability to bring badness. But the fact of the matter is that behind everything, whether you talk about artificial intelligence, whether you talk about internet, whether you talk about Twitter, Facebook, social media, anything, there is a man, there is a mind behind it. And that mind, that man is a human being, just like you and me. And that mind and that man is going to decide where he will take the technology. This is something that we need to understand. So if in that mind, in that brain, the service of humanity is the priority, which should be the priority, then I don't think technology itself has the ability. It is not the Frankenstein monster that we think it is. I don't think on its own it has the capability to destroy civilization, to destroy culture, because technology is new. It will be permanent, but the culture has always been permanent. It will transform the culture. And the fear that we have about technology, I think it is also important, because this fear will keep the technological horses bridled. If this fear is not there, then maybe it will become a destructive force. But I think productive amount of fear from technology will bring goodness. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's also very important that, we make it so explanatory. And I agree with him that whether we like it or not, the reality of the time is that there are two parallel worlds. Whatever intervention we create for good will always have its negative consequences, because there are bad actors, or there are bad minds, or people's mind behind all these ideas can be corrupted. And that's what Haider has said, that there's need to have regulation. There's need to you to define and have people that are like guardians of the ethics or what this should do. And when there's a deviation, like Hassan has said, it easily shows. It can either spur people to now start looking for indigenous way of creating our content. And that's what Haider has said. It's not enough for you to say, no, I don't want that, technology is wrong. That's what the Western guy has designed for himself. That's what he thinks his level of digital literacy may be able to cope with. It's now time for our young people, rather than engaging and fighting on social media, shaking bomb bombs. Or I have nothing wrong about that. But you see, the truth is, you already have a problem. Your house is on fire. Trust me, shaking bomb bomb is not part of the resolution of changing a collapsed nation. It's not. It will not work. So, and that's why your point is very clear, that whenever all these ideas are coming, every government, every person, every stakeholder must have at the back of their mind that there are also vices too to it that can be corrupted and that can be used in an awkward way. To address this, it is important that people start to organize themselves together. Indigenous ideas and indigenous concepts are done, and some of these advanced nations will need to also be sympathetic, or need to collaborate with also the regions, cultural elders, our imams, our pastors, our priests, our Buddhists, on, okay, how can we ensure that these are technology can be translated in your languages? And I truly believe that we do not need to fear. But like Heidi has said, we need to be concerned, we need to be vigilant. Just like social media, the idea is to connect with one another that you've not seen for a long time. But we know that bad actors use it for different things. That does not mean that the original premise for which it has started for is still not good. But we now need government now to now rise up and build cultures and systems and regulatory agencies to monitor, and laws, policies to ensure that whenever humanity and human rights related issues, or whenever things that disrupt the peace are being done, actions are taken. And some of the social media platforms take out these bad actors or take out contents that are not too well. But I feel that indigenous content creation, we should have more people like Amazon in India, in Afghanistan. All of you should have your own platforms, your own ideas, your own technology driven concept, so that whenever toxic and confusing narratives come from other climes that you don't understand, you can always leverage, you can zone out. It's a free world, and now use your own as a substitute. So I completely agree with you. It's a perspective that those of us in Global South will need to sit down. I truly looking forward to writing a summary report of all what we have said and then sharing it with people. I really feel Heidi and Hassan need to be in the space more than ever before. Akim Ketu Kelvin is saying the fear of the effect of technology is the energy that will continue to keep alive culture. I think what he's saying is that there is indeed fear, for technology, and he believes in his own view that may also be able to push some of our cultures there. But what I have learned over time about culture and traditions are this: that if you get the right culture, that's the right information that addresses your peculiar issue and guides your way of life, you will be able to transfer it to another generation, and that generation builds a trend. That's how development has taken place. That's how advancement has been. But if you have a culture that only picks punitive measures, how to suppress people, how to tag people as bad, and you constantly continue to transfer misinformation or misconcepts to another generation, you now build a tradition or a culture that is so toxic that people will not be able to develop. And that's why some researchers are saying Nigerians or Africans have a lot of talent, and yet they're still being let down because the cultures and some beliefs, that they have constantly emasculate, the need to be creative, the need to look at your problem, the need to find solutions to flooding in Africa. Flooding in Africa's tendencies is not like that in Germany. It's not like that in America. So these are issues that I think we should do. In 1 minute, Heidi, what will be your passing gift to our viewers who have extensively are impressed about your views? Let me read out one comment I heard. Please let Heidi know that we have a teenage conference sometime in Senegal. Can she share her contact so that we can get her to speak? So Soleimani in Senegal says there's a teenage summit. Are you up for that? But give us your parting gift, and Hassan, give us your parting please as we close out for this edition. Over to you, Haidia.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I've had a chance to read some of the comments that people are writing on Facebook. It's really, really nice. I've been able to learn from you guys as well. I guess just want to say thank you to the team for the International Youth Conference. Thank you, Daniel and Ahmed, for sharing your insights and really giving us the space to discuss. For me, learning is always two ways. Any space I enter, I always like to learn from young people as well as share my insights. And if this has been extremely informative, Ahmed, I've learned a lot from you as well. Ali, Mustafa, and the team, you guys have done an incredible job for this conference. And I'm just so inspired to see all the work you guys are doing. And yeah, I'm happy to connect. My LinkedIn is Hadia Samim, the same name that you see on the screen. Let's connect and take this further. And thank you so much once again for everyone for having me, for inviting me, and giving me this space to share my insights.
Hassan, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Daniel. It was very well moderated session, and I've learned a lot from you and Hadia as well. And I really want to give the credit to Ali Mustafa and his team for these amazing topics and amazing discussions, which are basically the demand of the time. Yeah. I believe that, we just need to wait and watch. Technology will take its course. It's a reality which cannot be changed. And what we are doing here is that we are making it a bit easy. Exactly. Right? So this is our effort. We're making things easier, and that is it. This is our job. And we've played our part, and we'll keep on playing our part wherever the space is. It's a great learning experience for me as well. Hadia has made some very excellent points, especially about, Afghanistan and the region as well. Yeah. And I've learned a lot about the African need for the digital era as well. So thank you so much for the invitation, and I hope there's a continuity for such spaces, and we'll keep on providing whatever we have, and we'll keep on learning whatever we can.
Thank you so much. On that note, we want to thank Ali and the team, Priyanka, Shubru, John Bosco, the entire ambassadorial framework. You've done an excellent job. The last 72 hours has been wonderful. We've been hearing comments, and also we want to thank your partners, Good World, Vanguard, AFS, UN Habitat, UN Department of Global Communication, civil society organization, the YC, government officials at the local level in San Francisco. You all have been wonderful. And our viewers back home, thank you so much. In my language, Une Emena, in Yoruba language, Shegon, in Hausa, Sanuda Zua, in our local dialects that I know very well. We are very appreciative. Let us continue to discuss on ways to make things work. Let us connect together. Reach out to Hassan to get his note, to get his view. Those of us in the Middle East, reach out to him. How best can we make this thing more easier? Reach out to Haidia. She's always available for us, and she has sound global perspectives on issues and can link you to resources that you need. Reach out to me, our organization, Team 54 Project. We're an environmental-based group, but we are willing to go the extra mile to ensure that sustainable development goal doesn't limit itself to the environment, but the person or community, and then mankind. Thank you so much, and it's bye from us here.
Thank you, everyone.